welcome to Studio 5. We are starting off this morning with some help in an area that many couples, most couples, run into problems, and it really applies to lots of life relationships. So, think of a relationship that you have in your life. Maybe it's with your spouse or a child or a friend, a close relationship.
Yeah, and at some point during that relationship, you run into some kind of communication problem. So Studio 5 relationship coach Matt Townsend has discovered the #1 killer of relationships. It's our individual communication style and how we resolve that. So how big of a problem is this?
It's this big.
Oh,
huge.
Wait, show me again.
Well, can you get it on camera?
Yeah, okay.
It's a huge problem. I mean, honestly, think about it. Everything you do, everything you know, everything you've created in a relationship happens through communication. Everything. So if we don't communicate very well, we're going to have a habit of creating a lot of negative experiences. Negative experiences accumulated is the cause of divorce.
And it's not just about communicating well, but it's about understanding your individual style of communication.
And that's the key, because everyone's different, right?
Yeah.
Well, not everyone. Darren's pretty much like everyone.
Yeah, I'm normal.
We're all so different, and so when we get into this, we're going to really only be talking about 2 basic different styles, and then 1 other way of doing it more effectively.
And this taps into our theme for the month of September. All this month we want to discover our style that does apply to communication. Matt's identified, as he said, 2 main styles of communication. First, you have to identify what style you are.
Yep. So we're going to start with a very common style in a lot of relationships. It's called the pursuer. Okay?
You're already looking at me and smiling.
I think you're a pursuer, but I'm not sure. Pursuers are those people that want to talk about everything. They're the ones that think when there's a problem, the #1 way to deal with the problem is we got to talk about it. We got to communicate on it. We got to get on it. And the pursuer is usually the one that wants to do it on their terms.
Okay, we got to talk about this.
Okay, this is the one. This is the person that wants to talk about it when they want to talk about it, just like that.
I want to talk now.
Shut up, Matt. We've got to talk. So think about it. When you've got an issue starting to come up in the relationship, are you the one that has to talk about it? Do you need to have the conversation? Pursuers do it for a reason, because they need answers. Answers make them feel safe. Answers make them trust. Answers make them feel like you're dedicated, that you're in this relationship. Not giving a pursuer an answer makes them feel really unsafe. And they feel like you're distancing and you're pulling away. Pursuers don't like people to pull away.
Are most women pursuers?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Statistically, women tend to be more pursuers or pursuant because they have a habit of, they're more communicative, so they think the #1 way to resolve something is talking about it. Now, that's a problem because it introduces the second issue, okay? The second type of style is the withdrawer. The withdrawer is the one that doesn't necessarily want to have the conversation. They'd rather do it on their side, on their agenda. The withdrawer is also the one that would rather get out of this any way they can. These are the people that when you think about it, the minute a conversation starts to come on, they start to walk away. They start to get busy. They start to need to go to the garage. They've got a lot of stuff they need to do.
Okay, and suddenly we have Professor Townsend here.
Yes, and a board. I cannot talk without a board.
Before you model this, I want to ask, there's nothing negative about either of these styles. They're both just positive attributes.
They're just styles. And what it is what the withdrawer is really looking for. Some people think the pursuer is like an aggressive witch who just won't let it go. It's not that way.
Matt, thanks for clarifying.
I was like pointing to him though. So it's not that you're just a mean old witch. What it is that you need answers, because answers make you feel good. And you're really, we might find out you're not a pursuer. And the withdrawer is not just a big wuss who won't deal with the issue.
Not a pansy.
He's not a pansy. The withdrawer is the one. He wants peace. These people want peace, and they've noticed every time we talk and the pursuer's coming down on them, we feel no peace.
Okay.
So check out this model, okay?
I'm ready.
This is the deal, and be thinking at home which one of you play which role. It doesn't have to be male, female. You could go any way on any issue. Some issues might drive you to be a withdrawer. Men, for example, might be more pursuing of intimacy. So they're constantly pursuing that topic.
When it comes to that.
And then women are the withdrawers.
So watch this. Take any issue that couples have, like money, sex, kids. Any issue on earth creates an opportunity to do this model, okay? Here's what happens. Pursuers generally are going to chase the withdrawer, and the withdrawer is going to run. Got it?
Got it.
Yeah.
The pursuer is only chasing because the withdrawer is running. And the withdrawer is only running because the pursuer is chasing. That is a system that will almost always kill the relationship.
What an exhausting system.
It is. It's the equivalent of the dog chasing its tail.
Because you're just going
round
keep going. And around.
The withdrawer doesn't want to be hurt, so it keeps running. The pursuer doesn't want to end in a dizzy mess, so it keeps chasing. Now watch. Eventually the pursuer, a lot of times, corners the withdrawer and they're trapped. And once they're trapped, that withdrawer's got 2 choices. freak out and withdraw. And just go to the bar.
This means freak out.
Yeah, that's the freak out line. It could just be they watch TV, they go watch ESPN, they get away.
But they pull back.
Or watch what sometimes withdrawers do. Sometimes the withdrawer may come back as a pursuer. Now we have two pursuers.
I've got two dramatic guys that are way too into video games and soundtracks.
It's because there's a whiteboard.
Yeah.
So I just call that stage one. Stage one is the chase, okay? Stage two is where we now come back. This withdrawer has changed into an escalator, and now we have two pursuers that go head to head. Predict what's going to happen.
Blood.
Blood. Major fight. Major smoke, by the way, that's just going to mess up those issues. By the way, the pursuer's now saying, at least we're talking. But they're not really. They're fighting, right? And after the fight, he's going to withdraw and she's going to withdraw. And now you are withdrawn, miles apart from each other. I call that polarized. And the issue, let's just say the issue was money, is now unresolved between you.
It's still there.
And they start to pile up. One by one, our issues never get solved because we don't have a pattern to do this better. We've got to learn to stop the pattern. So if you see the pattern at home, you've got to figure out a way. And what I would honestly suggest, talk to your partner. Show them this video and say, look, we have this pattern. I pursue, you withdraw. It doesn't matter male, female, who does it, but honestly say,
and no offense taken.
There's no offense. There should be no offense. We've got to do this better because we have issues piling up that we never resolve. Eventually those issues are going to choke out the relationship. It builds a wall between us. And we're miles apart.
And it's important to learn both communication styles. Because like you said, see, I think sometimes I take different roles.
You do.
In different situations.
You totally do.
So it's important to know both so that you can adapt and adjust, right?
Yeah, and what we're going to teach you is, more importantly than trying to be really good at pursuing or withdrawing, we want to teach you a new way of doing it, to be a real communicator that's not going to chase you away and that's not going to run from you. Even though I have the desire to get away from you, crazy lady, I want you to stay and have the conversation.
This is good stuff.
It's good stuff.
Because this is the first part. Now we've identified what we are, but really the key is knowing what the person is you're communicating with. So
we'll give you some tools for that.
Just helped us identify our communication style, and now he's going to help us deal with the other style.
Matt says most marital conflict comes from this one thing. So now we've identified our style and our spouse's style. How do we communicate with our spouse?
If you have to.
If you must.
This is seriously what I do for a living. All day long, I sit down, whether it's mother-daughter, I've had a lot of those in lately, or mother-sons come in, and they haven't talked, they've had a major blowout. One of the biggest keys to all of this is recognize these are patterns. These aren't like evil, horrible character traits that are going to doom your relationship. Most relationships have this, and a lot of the research says every couple is going to have conflict. It's this pattern that is a predictor of divorce. So, but it's all correctable. So what we've got to do is start to figure out, one thing I would do right up at the top of all of this is I'd start having a conversation. I would get both parties involved, because if there's only one of you knowing how to do this, and you're dealing with a withdrawer, he's still going to want to squeak away.
You're pursuing. Watch Matt Townsend's video.
Exactly. So you might want to sit down, make some rules, and say, look, we've got to do this. Now, first thing I would do is if you're dealing with a pursuer, okay, the pursuer is the fighter, we call them.
They're the person coming at you more often.
So if you're talking, so if you tend to be a withdrawer and you're dealing with a pursuer, your number one role is you've got to stay in the conversation. Stand your ground. Stay there. One of the rules I teach people to do is have a timeout. The minute you see it starting to escalate, call a timeout, and both of you stay there. Now, you're scared to death, because this is the crocodile that's going to eat you. So, but I need you to stand your ground and stay in that space, because if you'll stand your ground and stay in the space, you'll notice that you can actually get used to being there. A lot of withdrawers aren't used to being in the midst of conflict.
So is that a physical thing or a mental thing? A physical,
it's an emotion. It's kind of a mental.
Ground.
Stand your ground. You don't have to be like belligerent, but stay in the present. Stay in the space.
Okay.
You can't fix something if you're not in the room.
Are you still having the conversation while you're there, or you just?
You could now. You may just call a timeout.
Exactly.
Well, no, watch. Honestly, I don't care whether you're having the conversation, because if you can't stop the conversation, time it out, but then stay there in the space. So what I teach my clients to do is get used to, if it starts to escalate into a fight, time it out, and then I need both of you to stay there. The withdrawer can't run away. My job when I'm coaching is to hold that withdrawer in the conversation. And it's basically to shut the pursuer up. So I'm shutting one, not you, I'm shutting one up, and I'm stopping the withdrawer. It's the most powerful moment ever where you guys would traditionally run, and you don't. So stand your ground, number one. Rule number two is if you tend to be a withdrawer and you're dealing with a pursuer, you must share your voice. A lot of people aren't used to hearing their voice, so they quit using it. And they think by not using their voice, their marriage will have more legs. The marriage will go longer when I don't share my voice. It's totally not true. Your marriage goes shorter when you don't have a voice. So you've got to start getting used to sharing your voice. As a public speaker, it's always scary right when you're starting a speech because you don't know what your voice is going to be like, what it's going to sound like. So I always start with a story I always tell that gets me used to hearing my voice in that space. And once I get used to hearing my voice, that's all I want to hear.
Then you never shut up.
So I just can't shut up.
I'm just kidding.
That was very pursuing.
Whatever.
I'm out of here. See, that was a model of withdrawing.
No.
I just withdrew.
Hold your ground.
I'm back now.
Hold your ground.
I'm going to stand my
I want to hear your voice.
and I'm going to share my voice. So the other one is if you're dealing with a flighter or a withdrawer, somebody that's running away and you tend to be the pursuer, very, very simple rules, okay? Rule number one, you've got to make it safe. Think about it. If you wanted to get a cat out of a tree, you wouldn't shimmy up the tree and start out on the limb to get the cat at first. You'd try to get it down. You'd show that it's safe. Come on. Find a safe way to do it. Now, it's hard if we haven't talked about it. They don't want to have the conversation. But if you showed them these patterns, then all of a sudden what's powerful is you can say, you know what? I'm going to make it safe for you. How would you make it safe for somebody that's afraid to have a conversation? What would you say?
You wouldn't say anything. You'd listen.
You might not say anything, or you might start with them. Like
Okay.
I have an issue. I'm a little concerned about the finances. And instead of saying, you idiot, you spent, and then going off that way, which would scare them, you might say, can we talk about the finances? Help me understand what you're feeling about this credit card bill. And I might start with their story.
So you let them speak.
I'd let them start to speak, and I'd get into their story. And as I get into their story, I'm not going to react to it. I don't want to react to it. The minute they see me roll my eyes, or like clench my fist, or like go for a hand weapon, you're in trouble. I'm not saying you would do that. That's just all hypothetical. So
Do you notice I'm not commenting at all?
That was very good. You're very quiet. But the hardest thing about this, you can't just teach it in a little segment like this. This has to be practiced, but it's a skill, and it's based on character. Character is the ability to stand in the moment. Character is the ability to hear what your partner's saying, even when you don't like it. Character is the ability to say to your partner what needs to be said, even though you're afraid of how they'll take it. The #1 killer of relationships is the lack of character to stop this pursuing withdrawing. It's like the dog chasing its tail. After 50 times of that, you'd think they'd get it. But the problem with it is they're reacting. They're highly reactive. And most of us get so reactive in our conversations, we're not thinking straight.
But it can be changed. Because I think a lot of times when people identify themselves in one hole or they pigeon themselves into a characteristic or a title like a pursuer, they feel like, well, then what? That's me. But you can learn and change.
That's what they say. This is not who you are. If you think about it, at work you don't do this. You don't hound someone to corner them till they give in. Well, most of you don't. But, well,
you haven't worked with Darren, no.
Darren, man, such a diva. But it's so we don't do it at work, which tells us it's altered. We alter it when we're in our most private relationships. So it's totally teachable. That's literally what we do all day long, is teach couples how to do this pattern, how to communicate. And what I found, most couples care enough, they're smart enough, they are motivated enough that once they learn how to not do it, they come up with some of the most amazing answers ever.
Let me just ask quickly, is it more important for me to change my communication style, or am I just supposed to learn how to communicate with my other person? We're supposed to still keep our own communication styles, just learn how to communicate better, or do we have to change?
Yes.
Oh.
It's just that simple. Yes, you've got to do both. You've got to learn how to do it better with others, and your odds are going to have to change your style. We think about it. Our style should not just be our style everywhere. If I want to be effective with you, I've got to get into your style. I've got to communicate in a way that you will hear me, not just the way that I am naturally a communicator.
Yeah.
Okay. We just scratched the surface, and Matt said this isn't something we can just do in like a little 5, 6, 7 minute little segment. So we've actually posted Matt's information on our website. But if you want to even get better at this, you've even got a special workshop coming up next week. We start workshops about every 2 weeks. We have a 6-week workshop coming up on this called Feeding the Starved Marriage. It starts Wednesday, September 9th, 7 to 9 o'clock. It goes every Wednesday from 7 to 9 o'clock. Call my office, 801-747-2121, and we'll give you a 15% discount. So get your partner there, and we'll start you walking through it.